Why is it your favorite?
I don't know. Because Patrick told me to say it.
My Monty Python memory, when I was first introduced to it, it was in my sophomore year of high school. My theater teacher just brought the class together, and we just spent the class watching various skits of Monty Python. Hilarious.
When I first got into Monty Python, when I saw The Meaning of Life, and the guy was throwing up all over the restaurant, and I'll never forget it.
Well, when I was a kid, my parents actually did not want me to see it because they were afraid that I was going to repeat all of the lines incessantly. And I saw Holy Grail at a friend's house. So then after that, they were right. I did quote it incessantly. I drove my parents crazy.
Like several of the other guys I mentioned, I was aware of the TV show, but when I saw Holy Grail on video, I thought it was probably the funniest movie I've ever seen.
I remember my dad, around the time I was maybe 10 or 11, he came home with a DVD and he presented to me, much like the Holy Grail, Monty Python's Holy Grail. And him and I and all my brothers sat down and watched it. And then for the next 20 plus years, all we've done is quote it at each other.
You know, it's been so long, but I'll tell you a memorable Monty Python moment was I did a semester in Paris when I was in college, and I went to see Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And of course it was subtitled in French, but of course I could understand it in the English. And I went with my Italian roommate and my Parisian roommate. And my Parisian roommate and I thought it was hysterical, and the Italian roommate just didn't get it.
That's so funny.
Well, Life of Brian I thought was a very funny movie when I was in high school. And I got into this I was kind of tricked into it.
Well, I think at age maybe 10 or 11 in the early 70s, my older brother had a friend who brought over a Monty Python album. And we played it and played it and played it till we had it all memorized.
I think it must be watching PBS with my stepfather, who is from England. So he got the humor completely, and my mother, who was American, never understood it, would always say, "It's not funny, I don't get it, why are you watching this?" But I was always roaring with laughter.
Monty Python, the first one I saw was Meaning of Life, and I loved it. And I couldn't believe there were actually two movies that were even better.
And my earliest memory of early Monty Python was with my younger brother when we were doing the Brontosaurus. My theory, it's very thin at the front, big in the middle, and then thin again.
Years ago, I don't know how old I was single digits, 7, 8, 9, somewhere in there. And my mother would put this program on. And my father would get up and walk out of the room immediately. Oh, I don't like this stuff. My mother would watch it and she would laugh. And I was watching it and I couldn't figure out what was funny. But she would laugh, so I would laugh. But we watched it. I looked forward to it coming on. Are we gonna watch that program? I didn't know what it was called. And she said, oh yes, let's watch it.
My first exposure to Monty Python, I can thank my parents for that, was when they first got HBO in 1975 in Florida. And they said, we're gonna watch this movie, it's British humor, it's gonna be kind of weird, there's gonna be cuss words, but they let us know. And I laughed, just about everything. I was laughing so hard. Part of it was just like so surreal, so left field. And from then on,
my introduction to Monty Python was actually through the movies. So in the late 80s and 90s when I was in graduate school, absolutely loved watching them. We would have Monty Python marathons at night. And so that was really, my first one I really remember was Life of Brian, but I also love, Holy Grail and all of those. And then we would just run around and sort of say the comments to each other. So I'm really excited actually to be able to bring this back.
Oddly enough, I used to actually write for the Monty. I was one of the writers for a time.
Were you really?
No, not really. No. We rehearsed that, by the way.